I really tried to avoid any sort of details about this movie before watching it. I knew it was a space sci-fi movie with Brad Pitt, directed by James Gray. And that was enough for me. I mean, even the title doesn't really give anything away. But I think Brad Pitt is a phenomenal actor who's had a very interesting career. I mean, very early on he made some interesting movies like 7 and 12 Monkeys. And he's always kept making interesting movies, even when he became one of the biggest stars in the world. He never went full blockbuster boy though, and that's something I've always liked about him. I've also found the movies by James Gray fascinating too. And he doesn't stick to any one genre or any one type of movie either. He can make this weird relationship drama with Joaquin Phoenix called Two Lovers, and then make a solid adventure movie like The Lost City of Z. So I was pretty confident that these two guys together could come up with a pretty cool sci-fi movie. Well, did they, or did this end up being an unmitigated disaster? Honestly, I gotta say, I didn't love this one, but that's not to say it's a bad movie. In fact, overall, I would say I enjoyed it, but I am a bit torn. Because there are quite a few aspects of this that I just wasn't very fond of. For example, the narration. I don't think it was needed at all. It basically tells you what's going on inside the head of the main character. But I don't think that was necessary, and it just felt a bit clunky to me. Not very elegant. And then we have the CGI, which honestly was a bit subpar in my opinion. I mean, I get it, this probably didn't have an absolutely massive budget. And they needed a lot of CGI, and it was still very definitely acceptable. However, when you have movies out there like Interstellar, First Man, and even Arrival, movies that just absolutely nail the CGI and makes it look virtually flawless. Movies like this just stand out as not being quite as good. And it's movies like this that unfortunately aren't gonna age well in that regard. Then we also have a fairly short sequence at one point, where the movie basically turns into borderline schlocky horror. A sequence that really didn't need to be there at all. So yeah, there are a number of things I didn't like about this. However, I will say that I really liked the production design. And the physical sets looked absolutely fantastic, no complaints there. And I enjoyed the overall look and feel of the movie as well. I also definitely wouldn't say there was anything wrong with the acting. Everyone did a very good job, so that aspect was solid as well. Now when it comes to the overall story here though, that's when I get a bit torn. Because well, first of all, I kinda wanted something more. I wanted something a little bit more grand and ambitious. Because if you really break this down, there's nothing really grand or ambitious about this story. Sure, it takes place in space and has a lot of fancy sets and CGI. But at its core, it's just a story about a man and his missing father. And that relationship and the unspoken stuff between the two of them is really what this movie is all about. That's at the heart of this thing. And you could set this same story in rural Idaho and, I don't know, 1862 and it would work just as well. Which is probably also why this works in the first place. It's a very universal story. But the setting and the plot stuff is actually completely irrelevant. It doesn't need to be set in space and it doesn't need rockets, space elevators and antimatter thingies. Those really don't matter and that's why I'm so torn about this. Because I want them to matter. I like the sci-fi stuff to matter in a sci-fi movie. Of course, there also needs to be some sort of emotional human core to it all. And that is absolutely present here, but I also want the sci-fi stuff to play more of a role. Otherwise, why even set it in space and spend millions and millions on special effects? So that's sort of the crux of the issue for me with this movie personally. It's advertised as being this heady big sci-fi space movie, but it's actually just a quaint little drama about the complex relationship between a man and his father. That's basically dressed up as a big heady sci-fi space movie. And had I gone into this wanting that, I would have walked away from this perfectly happy, because that aspect of the movie works. I don't have an issue with it. And I do get that you could view the whole thing as a metaphor too. These vast physical distances being symbolic of the emotional distances. And the whole threat to humanity symbolizing something much more personal. But I don't know, I guess I just wanted more sci-fi from this, and it kinda let me down in that regard. But at the same time, that might just be me, and I could see other people not having that issue. So how about it? Would I recommend this? Sure, why not? However, don't go into this expecting hard sci-fi, because you might be disappointed. So maybe give this a shot, or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you'd like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.